because William Binney, former technical head of the National Security Agency, the main technical advisor, obviously, on the big film Snowden, who's advised the president and the CIA director Pompeo. He's now advising the president. He's going to be joining us next hour. He just said, hey, here, why don't you just have the actual memo they're talking about? Now, there's another memo they're writing about this memo, but here it is, just sent to us. I've got to go off air. This is the classified memo right here. I mean, I told you I have sources and that I'd reverse engineered it, but I guess the decision's been made by whoever's telling Binney to send this to us. Document cam, please. And it's a lot more is coming up after the break. Okay, this is happening right now. Can we do a document cam shot, please? Here it is, ladies and gentlemen. The first look. You want to look at it? Got the whole thing. In fact, the rest of it's coming out of the printer, guys. Will you bring it to me, please? The one by my office in the hall. Here it is. This is why I'm having trouble conducting the show here, the broadcast. United States Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Court, Washington, D.C., April 26, 2017. Leanne Flynn Hall, clerk of the court. And it is not very redacted either. And it's classified, top secret. And then you want it, you got it. Tomorrow's news today. This is what Congress has got. But they've got an unredacted one, except for some code names. They've got one even less redacted than this. But this is nowhere in the press, by the way. I mean, I knew this was coming in earlier, and I was dealing with it, trying to conduct the broadcast while I knew all this was going on. And now I'm trying to go over all this. But here it is. Let's just get a document cam shot on this right now so I can send this out live. People can then stop it and rewind it, and the press and people can look at it and go back over it. There's page 1. That's a good shot right there. There's page 2, page 3. Don't normally do this on air, but obviously this is important. It's all right here. Now, I want to explain, though. Congress is writing their report on this memo that's a roadmap to the perjury and the lying and all the rest of it. So that's a separate part. Their report on the memo and then what it connects to. And the organized brazen conspiracy to overturn the election and defraud the civil rights of U.S. citizens. I mean, the amount of crimes committed here are just absolutely staggering when you read this stuff. Their authorization, they say, for spying on Trump was weapons of mass destruction and working for a foreign intelligence operation. Look at the stuff they said to get this. But you're about to get this right now. And I told people I'd already been told the contents by sources. Well, I guess people just decided to go ahead and give it all to you right here. Because fortune favors the bold. They know they're going to give it to you on the file. Just post it and say, this is the secret FISA court memo, and we now have it. We've now had a chance to scan it. This has people going to the court during the election and saying, this is illegal, you need to stop. So there was a fight in the court. That's why the judges recused themselves and everything. I'm literally in Kit Daniels' office. While we're trying to post it, they grab control of the computer and turn it off and fry it right in front of us and then start jumping in. They are inside our computers right now, but they can't stop us. They can't stop us from publishing it because guess what, idiots? Trump already published it. It already got published. We haven't told you yet. You're fools. So you're not going to stop anything, globalist. Understand that, Hillary Clinton and all of you. Boy, I tell you, I've never seen something like this. Live time in Kit Daniels' computer, because I'm on air saying post it. Can you believe that? They have whole situation rooms, probably still in our government, criminally battling the American people right now, Roger.
Because they are fighting going to prison. Some of the highest level officials in the Obama administration are looking at serious jail time, public ruin. And, of course, this tarnishes the presidency of Barack Obama. They said that Watergate was a constitutional crisis. That was child's play compared to what we're looking at here.
Stop there.
The whole house of cards is coming down.
Daniel Coates is the director of national intelligence that oversees the 17 agencies, and he's very important. We're going to be talking about him in a moment. because mainstream media is already going to try to spin things, and is spinning it, that Jones is illegally releasing the 100-page or 99-page, technically, top secret Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Court memorandum, opinion, and order dealing with the whole history of Obama's illegal spying on the Trump campaign, on President-elect Trump, and then ongoing. So this is the document. It's on Infowars.com right now. And William Binney drew our attention to it this morning. This is the big memo everybody's talking about. So while we line him up right now, let's just play Schiff, the Democrat that's been honchoing this fraud in the House. We'll play him first saying, you're too dumb to know what you read, so he didn't want it released. Well, sorry, Schiff, it just got released at Infowars.com. But it got released somewhere else. We're going to get to that in a moment with William Binney. And then we're going to play Trey Gowdy. We saw more manifest bias against President Trump in the memo. No kidding, we're reading it. Trey Gowdy, FBI, text mentioned secret society. That's in here. FBI agents discuss secret society. Let's play those clips one after the other. Then we're going to get William Binney on with us. Here are some of those clips for background.
Why not allow people to look at it and let Americans make the decision for themselves about whether it's useful information or not?
Well, because the American people, unfortunately, don't have the underlying materials, and therefore they can't see how distorted and misleading this document is. The Republicans are not saying make the underlying materials available to the public. They just want to make the spin available to the public. And I think that spin, which is a fulsome attack on the FBI, is just designed to attack the FBI and Bob Mueller to circle the wagons for the White House. And that's a terrible disservice to the people, hardworking people at the Bureau. But more than that, it's a disservice to the country.
It does make you wonder. Again, it's a strange coincidence. Just as, you know, it's possible that these text messages that are missing, perhaps they really were lost. Perhaps it is another strange coincidence. The problem, Martha, is for former prosecutors like Chairman Gowdy and myself that worked at the department and worked with the FBI, it makes it harder and harder for us to explain away one really strange coincidence after another. Look, the point, I think, with respect to the issue of bias that Chairman Gowdy mentioned before, we knew that Strzok and Page had an intense anti-Trump bias. And that's okay so long as they check it at the door and do their job. But we learned today in the thousands of text messages that we reviewed that perhaps they may not have done that. There's certainly a factual basis to question whether or not they acted on that bias. We know about this insurance policy that was referenced in trying to prevent Donald Trump from becoming president. We learned today about information that in the immediate aftermath of his election, that there may have been a secret society of folks within the Department of Justice and the FBI, to include Page and Strzok, that would be working against him. I'm not saying that actually happened, but when folks speak in those terms, they need to come forward to explain the context with which they use those terms.
With regard to these new texts and the idea that there could be a special counsel, a second special counsel requested to look into this, how are you pursuing that?
Well, these texts are incredibly important, Martha, for a number of reasons, both what's there and what's not there. So lay aside this glaring 5-month gap in text that the world's premier law enforcement agency somehow missed. Lay that aside. What we have seen, what Johnny and I saw today, was a text about not keeping text. We saw more manifest bias against President Trump all the way through the election into the transition. And I saw an interesting text that Director Comey was going to update the President of the United States about an investigation. I don't know if it was the Hillary Clinton investigation, because remember that had been reopened in the fall of 2016, or whether it was the Trump investigation. I just find it interesting that the head of the FBI was going to update the President of the United States, who at that point would have been President Obama.
Congressman Gowdy, do you want to expound on the secret society idea?
Sure, I wish I could. I wish I'd been the one who either sent that text or received it. You have this insurance policy in the spring of 2016, and then the day after the election, the day after what they really didn't want to have happen, there's a text exchange between these two FBI agents, these two supposed to be objective, fact-centric FBI agents, saying perhaps this is the first meeting of the secret society. So, of course, I'm going to want to know what secret society are you talking about, because you're supposed supposed to be investigating objectively the person who just won the Electoral College. So, yeah, I'm going to want to know.
Congressman Gowdy, you know, in terms of that glitch of the missing text messages, those months, are you going to subpoena the phone companies to get those text messages?
You know, Martha, Congress is not great at using legal process like subpoenas and search warrants. Of course, we want that. I hope Mike Horowitz, the Inspector General, got them. Unfortunately, the way our government's set up, law enforcement is better able to go to communications carriers and get texts and instant messages than Congress is. So, yes, I want them, but I don't want them 2 years from now, and I don't want them after a motion to be held in contempt of Congress. I want them sooner rather than later. So either the Bureau needs to find them, or we need to have someone who has really easy access to these.
That's right. This has to be done now because the Clintons and others have been caught committing all these crimes. They've been caught trying to organize this economic, political espionage against the country. And they've already committed so many crimes that until they get in serious trouble, they are a clear and present danger. Now, joining us via phone is William Binney, former technical head of the NSA. And, you know, the guy credited at the NSA with helping bring down the Soviet Union. And I guess now he's helping bring down the globalist Clinton cabal that's been using the NSA for decades, I guess, now to dominate and control the American people. So he joins us now. We got to go to break here in just a few minutes. But he contacted us a couple hours ago and said, this might be helpful. Here's the actual memo they're saying is classified and that Congress is saying they need to get authorization to release. But then when he sent it to us, we noticed that it was right there on the Office of the Director of National Intelligence website. We're going to show that to you. So, yes, InfoWars is breaking it. The media doesn't even know what to do or how to respond to this. It's simply crazy. So, Mr. Binney, thank you for joining us. We'll get into this whole conspiracy against the Republic that's clearly coming into view here, and from your expertise, where you think this is going. But just briefly, it's incredible. When did this get put on the National Director of National Intelligence website? And it's wild that there's no coverage of it. Was this just today, and then you sent it to us?
Yeah, as far as I know, it's just got on the website today. And I just found it through another source that passed it to me.
Of course. Well, clearly, deduction, the president's, Pompeo's met with you, you're advising the president. The president has the authorization to do this. Congress has been asking for it. So that looks like the president just declassified this.
Well, somebody did, that's for sure. I mean, it basically is proving everything that, you know, I've been saying and Edward Snowden's been saying and all these about spying on U.S. citizens. And it goes into much more detail, proving they're collecting in bulk everything that's being communicated inside the United States. And then they're using it, even NSA analysts are still using it to go against individual U.S. citizens, you know, with their attributes that are not minimized.
This is simply incredible. William Binney, we're going to go to break. We're going to go to break. We're going to come right back to you. You'll have the floor with your expertise to lay out the big picture, what we've learned, what this memo tells us. If you've had a chance to read it, it's 100 pages. William Binney, former head of the NSA Technical, tells InfoWars it's appeared on the Director of National Intelligence website. William Binney is our guest. He is the former technical leader of the intelligence with NSA before becoming a whistleblower in 2001 after more than 30 years of the agency. Binney's been described as one of the best analysts and codebreakers in NSA history. And again, he is the technical advisor for the film Snowden. That is so amazing. I think the best work that particular director's put out, Expose, Facts.org, agoodamerican.org is a documentary that he endorses and is in that breaks down this total surveillance grid. Now further confirmed, talking to Binney earlier, we just joined us, and then during the break, this is as big as the WikiLeaks revelations about illegal spying, but it ties into the Democrats spying on candidate Trump and President-elect, exactly what we knew from our sources. Again, this was published today at the Director of National Intelligence website. William Binney, who's been advising the CIA director and others, let us know the minute it went out. So we are the first to break it, and notice an hour plus later, no media coverage of this. They don't know what to do. This is the secret memo that's so troubling that ties into all the perjury and the cabal of Clinton operatives trying to set the president and others up using the might of the surveillance grid that's meant for foreign powers against the American people. This is beyond any Hollywood movie. So, Mr. Binney, you've got the floor for the rest of the hour. I know you've got some big breaking news that you're able to get into now because this is not secret on programs that you helped develop and the upstream controls on all of this. So we're going to break it down. But let's first get into this memo and what's happened to the president, what's happened to the American people. The FBI agent saying we've got an insurance policy. We're a secret society. We're going to overturn the election. I mean, this is incredible. William Binney, start wherever you think's best.
I'd like to start with some of the things they're talking about on page 15 of that ruling, where they talked about NSA having the authority to go in the upstream program and take down main communications trunks, and because I think there's some terrorist or dope dealer on there, and they can capture and keep the entire trunk line. Which means, like, if you have a 10 gigabit line, like 64 fibers, and you know there's a drug dealer in there, internationally, I'll take down the whole line, or you think there's one there, you'll take in the whole line and capture all the data and keep it all and sort it and interrogate it. That's basically how NSA analysts are able to look at their lovers if they're cheating on them. That's how they can do that under that authority. But that's all done in secret. The FISA court is speaking to it there in their ruling. But this feeds right into the doing that. They say they had two ways of doing it. Those who run the cables, basically, meaning AT&T, they own the cables, so they let them have access. And the other was the 702 program, where they went to the service providers for the internet or for the phone network. That also included AT&T. But this is the upstream program, is the taps on the fiber lines where they take everything. And that's really what I was trying to say about President Trump when he was being targeted in all the data they were collecting, including his entire staff on his committee and everything. They were all being scooped up in this bulk acquisition off the fiber lines in the upstream program. And the main slide that would show it, if you could put it up, is the Fairview program. That is AT&T's tapping points inside the 48 states of the United States. And you notice all the tap points are distributed with, this is the one that no mainstream media wants to show on TV, because this is the one that calls out this business about they're only after foreigners is an obvious lie. I mean, if you looked at that slide, there are 11 points on that Fairview slide, excuse me, where the transoceanic cables surface on the coast of the United States. Now, that's where all foreign communications are coming into or going out of or transiting the U.S. Now, if they're only after foreigners, all they have to do is be at those 11 points. But the rest of the 80 points of distributed tap points go right across the U.S. with the population. That means we, the U.S. citizens, are the target, not foreigners. And that's the obvious lie they've been trying to feed us for years.
Wow. I don't want to interrupt. This is so bombshell, but this is confirming total dragnet of the entire Trump organization campaign by the Democratic Party, in control, unmasking. They've lied to Congress saying it was only a few people. This is bombshell proof of perjury.
Yeah, that's exactly right. I mean, they've been lying to us in many different ways. To the committees, they lie. You know, even within the intelligence communities, they lie to one another. So it's all built on lies.
Wow. Please continue.
Well, the other point I'd like to make is that it's not just the Trump organization; it's everybody in the country. We're all in that boat. That's how they could put leverage on any of the judges in the Supreme Court, or else federal judges anywhere, or members of Congress anywhere. And when Representative Gowdy is saying he's not aware of all this, well, he should be, and he should be asking about that Fairview program and what are they doing at tap points across the United States, like in Kansas or Missouri, or, you know, what are you tapping there? Well, it's not foreigners, I'll tell you that.
Well, you're absolutely, as you said, they're dragnetting everybody instead of actually targeting terrorists and others. Then it becomes a needle in a haystack, as you've documented and as you're advising the president now. But the big news is they did testify that they were not spying on the president or his family or any of this, which is a total lie. I've already had the DEA leak us documents where they were doing it, and including my name in there and private phone numbers. So I know it's accurate. But this is absolutely incredible. And I don't know how the corporate media is going to ignore this. But then you see the Republicans being pressured not to release this memo they've had, sitting on it, because obviously they're getting pressured not to. But clearly this points towards the president, who's authorized to release it through his director of national intelligence and decided to do so today.
Yeah, I think that this is exposing all of this stuff and all this activity on all these agencies and all the political people involved in this. All this has to happen. We need to cleanse the house here. Otherwise, we're going to be, if we don't look back and fix the problems, we'll never fix them, and they'll just keep going. So unless you face what happened and deal with it and hold people accountable, you're never going to correct any of these problems.
Well, the president was critical of the FISA. He said, my hands are tied. They're ramming it through. He still signed it, obviously, because it was tied to so many intelligence operations, but he said he wants to fix it. This is, I think, a big message from the president declassifying this today, and a little bird telling you about it so we could break it. But again, this is one of the biggest stories of my lifetime, and it's total silence right now that this is out.
Yeah, that's been like even the Russiagate. The mainstream media was pushing an agenda, not any factual evidence, and so I found them to be totally worthless. And they were actually they should unsubscribe to the First Amendment as a part of the free press, because they're not free and they're not a press. They're not looking for the truth and being honest about any of it with any of us. So I just see that as a total failure for their obligation to our Constitution and the process that we are supposed to have here in this country. Well,
they didn't think about people like you and Mr. Drake and countless other FBI agents that have exposed what was going on. I mean, there have been a lot of good people, and I know it's just your duty. You've done it, but you've been through a lot. Now to see all this coming out, is there not some satisfaction there, Mr. Binney?
Well, I have to admit that I do. That I'm really glad that this is coming out in print and in the official documents, so that now we can clearly say, this is really what you've been doing. You cannot deny this. This is your documentation. This is what you're saying to us you've been doing. So it's not us accusing you. You now have to face up to the consequences of what you've done.
Wow, let's get into all this with the former head of operations and the guy that actually did the fighting, did the attacking, and did the defending, William Binney, to help us traverse this 100-page bombshell of bombshell documents at Infowars.com right now. Clearly, Trump said, enough of this. I'm the president. Boom, put it out. William Binney calls. He's already coming on and says, hey, look at this. A little bird called him. And no coverage, no media. They don't know what to do. We're going back to William Binney here in about 60 seconds. He's very gracious to join us. But one of our reporters, Kit Daniels, just wanted to make a point about this. I mean, we're plowing through this 99 pages. This is incredible. I've never heard Binney so happy during the breaks we're talking, because this is total vindication. It's so good for our country. And again, it's the president. He clearly has released this. And so now we'll see what the press does. Kit Daniels?
I only got to page 19 before I found something really bombshells. The fact that it says that procedures have prohibited the use of U.S. person identifiers to query the results of upstream internet collection under Section 702. But the October 26, 2016 notice informed the court that NSA analysts had been conducting such queries in violation of that prohibition. And it goes on to say that they had to make they bypassed that prohibition by kind of reframing the whole argument that they were not collecting data.
People are like, hey, this is a crime, so they play games with it. Let's go to the real expert on this then, William Binney. Is this not more proof of the fraud, that they're admitting what they're doing is illegal?
Yeah, but let me give you a little bit background on excuse me, on the concept of minimization. That's a concept the court uses all the time, and they keep saying this protects all your identity. Well, what they really don't understand, or they don't know, I guess, all the data that's collected by NSA is in what they call a collection database. There is no minimization of any data at all in that base. So that even analysts, even when, for example, Ed Snowden had said all they have to do is use the IP of the DNC and they can go into the database and find the information on it. Well, they can do that with anybody, because if they go into the collection database with the knowledge of what their attributes are, phone numbers, email addresses, IP numbers, that they can use that to scarp up out of that database everything about them. And it's not just them. The other part that's missing here, and that I haven't come across yet, is that what the FBI and the DEA and the DOJ are doing with that data, because they also have direct access to it. And so do the other Five Eyes. GCHQ, Canada, New Zealand, Australia, they can get into that database too through the IC Reach program. So, this whole thing is a farce. The minimization is a joke. The oversight from the FISA court, they can't even tell what's going on. And the intelligence committees, they're about as worthless as anything.
And as you warned in secret session with Congress 18 years ago, back in 2000, 2001, if you let hundreds of thousands of people, private contractors, get in these databases, you've created doorways into everything, making us insecure for hackers, foreign governments, clandestine groups. This is insane what they've done.
Yeah, plus they open up everything to industrial espionage everywhere. So, I mean, now that GCHQ and NSA, they can, and the Five Eyes can go in and do all that anywhere in the world.
William Binney, as the former guy that ran the NSA operations, not the political head, but the guy that ran the operations, as basically the military officer that was in command. What needs to happen now? We knew this would be used to abuse, like in East Germany or back in Nazi Germany or other authoritarian regimes that use spying to control against their own people. They've been caught. They've been caught lying. They've lied to Congress. They're still ongoing with the Russian canard trying to overthrow a president that's clearly trying to reform things and is clearly for the country. Say what you want about him. He clearly, is trying to build the country economically back up. And they're just committing these giant flagrant crimes. They're caught in the text messages admitting that it's politically motivated and that it's fraud. They're paying their wives and husbands millions of dollars at Fusion GPS to create the fraud, to launch the larger fraud. I mean, this is beyond any movie I've ever seen. If we don't go after them quickly, they're going to pull something like a cornered bank robber.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, what needs to happen now? Congress needs to make some criminal referrals to the Attorney General, and he needs to set up a separate grand jury to investigate and issue indictments, because these are clearly demonstrable and but from the evidence directly the crimes that have been committed. And all they need to know now are who are all the names they need to put on those crimes. I mean, there's going to be a lot of them. I mean, including in the FBI and the DOJ and, probably at CIA and NSA also.
And again, this isn't some type of vindictive thing, because we go after these people, they're going to fight hard. I just want them to go away. They're not going away. They're not going to Alba like Napoleon. They're like Hitler. They're dug in their Reichschancellery, and they're not giving up.
Yeah, they're letting everybody else die. But the point is, unless you face them and go after them and do something about this, you're not going to correct the problem in the future, and people will look back and say, well, they got away with it, so I'll do it too. That's why I blamed this all on Jerry Ford when he pardoned Nixon, When he did that, he said every president can do anything he wants. He's now got a get-out-of-jail-free card. That's the next president, who also wants to be able to do whatever he wants. So, you see, that was where I put the blame right there with Jerry Ford. And if he'd have let Nixon go to trial and be indicted, then I don't believe that this would have happened. But we haven't done any indictments of any of these people who've done similar crimes, and now for massive crimes. We haven't done any of that. And that's really what we need to do.
Absolutely. Well, what do you expect the political class to do, though? Because obviously the Republicans have had this for months. They haven't released it because there's so much classified stuff in here showing the crimes. I mean, in a way, Trey Gowdy and all those guys, even though I like them, they're, by not releasing this yet and wanting to redact it heavily, they're really defending the corrupt system itself.
Yeah, that's right, and that's why I kept trying to say, even with Trey Gowdy, he needs to ask questions about that Fairview program, the slide you had shown there. And also, there are other programs. Occasionally what NSA does to cover up what they're doing is they rename programs. They call them different names. And so if you go ask them at Fairview and they've changed the name to something like Hemisphere, if that's the case, then they'll honestly answer you and say, well, we don't have a program Fairview. So
exactly. So they play semantical games. It's like saying there's no global government. We have global governance. They just change the names and have musical chairs.
That's right. That's right.
We're going to go to break with another segment with you. What's the other key areas you want to get into when we come back, Dr. Binney?
Well, I just wanted to get into the FBI and the DOJ and all of that, and the DEA.
All right, we'll be back. Share the document. And we're going to add a link on there to the Office of National Intelligence, which is the head 17th agency over everything that has released this. And I was talking to William Binney during the break. You were saying it's very encouraging that the Director of National Intelligence released this today, because the liberals and others fake liberals are saying, oh, you know, there's no such thing, you're making it up. Well, Daniel Coates has now released this with little fanfare. You've been in a similar position as him. What do you think is the thinking behind this by the Director of National Intelligence, obviously being directed by the president?
Well, to my mind, I was hoping that this was an indication that the president really wants to clean up the mess in the intelligence community and the law enforcement agencies. So I just think that that's the one thing that hasn't been addressed so far that I've read in that report is that the use by the FBI and the DEA and the DOJ by information collected by NSA warrantlessly against U.S. citizens. One of the key indicators as to what they were using it for was given by Senator Feinstein on the House and Senate floor when they were challenging the funding for that program in 2013. She came on there and said to defend that program, she said, this program is so useful to us, we put hundreds of people in jail every year with it. But he's talking about U.S. citizens that were they used the data against them in a court of law, but they did a parallel construction, meaning they fabricated data to substitute for the NSA data because it wouldn't be admissible. So what that really is doing is subverting our entire judicial system, and this is what should really concern the Attorney General. If he wants to have a real, reliable attorney, as an Attorney General, have a reliable judicial process, he has to address this and has to do it as fast as he possibly can and correct it.
Looking at the document, do you agree it's about 90% unredacted? And what do you make from that? What do you think is redacted in here, Dr. Binney?
Well, a lot of things that you could fill in, like the Fairview program or AT&T, the service providers, you can fill that in from a lot of material that has been released from Edward Snowden and is also on the web. You just need to collect it together and look at it in concert with one another. Then you can fill in the blacked out areas. It's not that difficult to do if you. If
You're talking about reverse engineering with open databases.
Exactly. Yeah, sure. Yeah.
Please continue.
Well, I mean, the point is that this is like the first opening in the legal process to now go back and challenge these people, because I'm also going to I'm supporting 3 separate lawsuits against the United States government for the NSA unconstitutional collection of data on U.S. citizens. And I'm going to use this ruling also in those courts, and I'm going to be passing that on to the lawyers managing those lawsuits. So this is going to be leverage for us, too, in the lawsuits to actually see, because Congress, when they try to pass laws that cover up all the crimes that these agencies have been committing, they can't do it if they don't match and conform to the Constitution, because those laws are no longer laws. I mean, the Constitution is the ultimate law. If it gets constitutionally challenged in a court and ruled unconstitutional, the law is nullified.
Wow.
So they cannot pass laws that violate the Constitution. That's the point. And that's what they've been doing.
William Binney joins us. ExposeFacts.org, GoodAmerican.org is the documentary film. PGKnowledge.eu. You're also advising the EU on ways to not spy on the general public, but to stop terrorists and criminals. I know you can't get into your meeting with Pompeo, the head of the CIA, at Trump's request, but what Trump said publicly back since he was briefed that he was being spied on throughout the campaign, but obviously didn't put it out because it was classified. He just said that they were lying. Clearly, the president shows that, yet again, he's quite a maverick here. And it's not a love fest. It's just a fact. This is very good, as you were saying, sign that the president does want to reform things and wants to use these systems that you developed to actually target people that via the algorithm and via the systems pop themselves into the grid, and then you actually go after the people, and it's much more successful than a total political control, spying on everybody, and then mainly government heads use this to spy on their own wives, children, and whistleblowers to continue corruption.
Yeah. Also, I would add they used it against the government has used it against Jim Rosen, the Associated Press, Eliot Spitzer, to get rid of him because he was going after the bankers on Wall Street for defrauding people, and also against anybody who is all the whistleblowers, anybody who's has been opposing them in any way, and also I think in terms of leveraging Congress and leveraging courts. So I think that this was the major problem I had with it. This was when you acquire this kind of knowledge about the entire population of a country, it gives that central point of knowledge a great deal of power over everybody. I mean, even if they can't find something on you, if they go find something about somebody you care about, they can leverage you that way. I mean, that's the old KGB, Stasi way of doing things, too.
Or exactly. They'll just take that you were someplace, match that up with somebody else, have them say you did something wrong, and say, we've got the data points. That's how this works. Yeah, they can also fabricate, manipulate the data. They tried to do that with us, but that failed, too. Because, again, a good whistleblower let you know what they'd actually done so you could expose it, if memory serves, which has got to scare them that there's so many moral men and women in our government. The government I don't see as the problem. The problem is corrupt individuals and cowards in our government. Yeah, it's about it's the established government, too. It's about 4 layers of management in those established governments that really think they have the power and to manipulate everybody, including the president. Exactly. You've got the general deep state that's grown, and then you've got above it the shadow government that's filled with the permanent bureaucracy and corporate bureaucrats who literally think they're God. Yeah, that's right. And they know better, you see. They're the elite group. Those are the people who have all the brains, so obviously they must know right. And so therefore everybody needs to follow what they say. So that's and when they control all the information and threaten people like the news medias and things like that who just cower over, they don't stand up for anybody. Then you know you have no mainstream media to challenge anything, to follow what they're supposed to do, and that's why they were written into the First Amendment, is to challenge what government's doing, make sure they tell the people what it is. You've experienced it, I've experienced it, but I'll cover something, do something. 2 days goes by, George Soros and Media Matters puts out the spin, and then 500 articles, 1,000 articles the next day go with the exact spin, just rewritten, and you realize the press knows they're not press. They're regurgitators. They just repeat this whole line to create this normalcy bias and just to have this big lie out there, and it's just incredible. And then now the fake media wants to shut us down. They want to shut down the real media. It's just crazy. We're going to do one more segment with William Binney here, and I really appreciate him graciously giving us so much time. But looking at this for people that just tuned in, how would you describe the magnitude of this report that you were made aware of that just appeared on the Office of the Director of National Intelligence, the secret FISA court memo concerned about all the corruption that Congress has been talking so much about, the left said didn't exist? Here it is. I mean, how would you quantify how big this is? Well, it involves everything that everybody in the country does in every aspect of their lives. Everything. You know, any kind of issue that you have, medical or otherwise, it involves all of that. And a rogue group in the government, less than 30 agents in the FBI and Justice Department, lawyers, creating this whole fake lie, getting fake warrants, and then lying to the media and still pushing it and sending text messages admitting it's a fraud and admitting they're setting the president up. I mean, the boldness of that, to be text messaging the crimes they're committing, it shows a level of dangerous hubris, doesn't it? Yeah, the arrogance of power is what I call it. They think they have power over everybody, and the only way to do it is so shine the light on them and go after them. That's why this Attorney General needs to stand up and do something. If he doesn't, we ought to fire him and get somebody who will. That's the most powerful thing you've said. Sessions, I mean, well, Trump's doing the right thing here, and this is Trump. And you notice the silence is everything. It's everything you need to know. Infowars.com has the exclusive memo. They don't want you to see. Spread the link right now. This is a war. Okay, well, I just think that the Attorney General needs to set up these indictments and start attacking the people who have been at the center and the core of this continued violation of our constitutional rights. A lot of them are embedded, longtime employees of these agencies. Some of them appointed, and some not. So that's where the swamp really needs to be cleaned. And then when they do that, they have to go on with the political cronies that have been helping them out and helping all of this happen. So a good deal of the U.S. government should be indicted. And I think that's the proper way for an Attorney General to proceed. If he doesn't do that, I just don't. I lose all faith in him. I do too. Continue. So on Russiagate, I wanted to add one thing. I don't know that I've said this on your program before, but I was in the UK examining some of the raw data from Guccifer 2, the data that was supposedly hacked from the DNC on the 5th of July, and there was a second batch on the 1st of September. And I was over there with my friend Duncan Campbell, and we were examining the data, the raw data. Well, not the real, but
the timestamp files that were transferred and trying to put it together and see what the transfer rates were and all that. And then Duncan looked at something and he discovered this, that if you ignored the date, day, and the hour and only looked at minutes, seconds, and milliseconds, you could merge the two data sets from the dated the 1st of September and the 5th of July together into one set of data, which meant very simply put that this goose for two, wherever he was, was playing with the data to try to manipulate us and confuse us. So the whole thing was a basic sham from the beginning, of total fabrication.
Didn't you also point out a lot of this data clearly was downloaded at speeds that couldn't be online?
Oh yeah. That was the other part. The speed, and we found out the highest speed was really 49.1 megabytes per second, which is close to 6 times the rate necessary. On the web would have to be,
Sure, only point blank range with a really fast port could do that.
That's right. So the whole thing was a fabrication, and that was my point to a lot of the media, who started to calling me a conspiracy theorist and all that. I was just dealing with facts. They were just dealing with labels.
Well, Russiagate has imploded completely, but I think Mueller may go ahead with a fake indictment. The hubris of these people is the most insane I've ever seen.
Yeah, I agree. It's just outright insanity.
Well, we appreciate your courage. We wouldn't be here without you and so many other people who have told the truth. Obviously, Director Stone, I don't agree with some of his politics, but his courage to tell the truth is amazing. Thank him for that. Just briefly, pgknowledge.eu. Tell folks about that.
I started a company over in Amsterdam, Netherlands, to try to do what I was doing over here 25 years ago. And since in that 25 years, the U.S. government really wouldn't let me do it, they attacked me everywhere I tried to implement that kind of knowledge and ability. And so I formed a company with some people from Netherlands, and we are putting together a program to do that over there. So perhaps that will be a targeted approach to do things like detecting terrorist threats in advance, not after the fact, and doing all kinds of other data analysis on large data sets.
That doesn't violate people's privacy or rights and doesn't create holes in everybody's privacy to be exploited by real criminals. William Binney, you're amazing. Please join us again in the next week. I know you're very busy and going back to Amsterdam to set this up, but please join us whenever you'd like. We'll just wait for that call. Thank you, Mr. Binney, for sending us the huge bombshell news. And basically, you broke the big NSA / FISA warrant information. So thank you. We salute you, Dr. Binney.
Thank you.